It's an end of terrace built in 2003. It's a 3-bed, 3-bath, C1, but it's now B2 with solar. Our rooms are all standard height. We have double glazed windows and doors and an average attic insulation. Gas central heating, stove in our fireplace that only heats the sitting room. And then our solar system has a 4 kilowatt potential, about 3.4 kilowatt max, 5 kilowatt battery, but we're hoping to get a second one.
Mm-hmm.
Eddy hot water heater and a grid isolator for a blackout. Why did we choose infrared heating? This technology, we chose it because we want to electrify our home. We started with EV and then got a solar system with the battery and hot water, so that kind of took away our need to heat water with gas. So this is kind of our next step, because we don't want to be paying standing charges or gas boiler service fees every year. We'd been saving for a heat pump, as that's the only option SCI are pushing, and then came across infrared via the Fully Charged YouTube series. After that, it was kind of a no-brainer for us once I saw that they could be ceiling mounted, which was for us a great idea. Heat pumps would require a deep retrofit to be efficient, as they advertise, and our house had been recently remodeled by the previous owners. We only bought the house about 3 years ago, so we didn't really want to be investing in taking up floors and getting new radiators and kind of all that stuff. So the capital investment for us would have been quite a few years to pay back, and we would have been saving for quite a few years to get it. And obviously then we still would have had the radiators like the one that would have been behind us on the couch, which wasn't very efficient because it's mostly heating the couch and not the room. So that really wasn't great for us. So ceiling mounted heating panels would free up walls, like in our kitchen where we have very little wall space for presses. And it just wasn't very uneven, we found, with convection, because we found that we would have cold patches in certain parts of the rooms.
Well, I mean, I guess the biggest issue with convection heating for us was we only had one thermostat upstairs, and the downstairs would be constantly cold, so I'd have the heating on all the time. The hot air would travel upstairs, and then Eve would be roasting upstairs, and I'd still be freezing downstairs.
I'd be opening the window in my office, and you'd be sweating, and you'd be freezing down here with hoodies on. Yeah, so that's essentially kind of the rationale for us. We just felt like even if we were to have got a heat pump, it still wouldn't have been great. It just doesn't suit the layout of our home very well. It just wouldn't have worked. We would have had to have gone full underfloor heating or some other different way of passively heating, and it just would have been a big investment that we wouldn't really have had the time or the energy or inclination to do.
Exactly.
And this was a very straightforward one day. So based on that, we decided to leap into the new technology that no one we knew had used, and without seeing how it felt, but I kind of trusted intuition, and we just kind of made an educated guess after reading and doing a lot of research into it ourselves, and kind of going through the tech specs myself.
Like, technology's been around for quite a long time, and
just not familiar to the Irish.
Just really. Not familiar in Ireland, but other countries have been using it. So that's why we said, well, we were fairly confident that it would work, and it is working, you know.
So we decided we would install it around mid-October 2022. So how have we set it up? We decided to fit them in the full house when we were doing it. We debated doing just the downstairs or just the upstairs to give it a go, but we said for the best value for money with installation and the least amount of interruption, which is obviously going to affect our pets as well because they don't like workmen, we decided we'd do it all at once. So they're wired into the ceiling above us, so same as the lights. And then we also have regulators that are put into the walls. They're also just wired in. So there's no like additional plugs that we've consumed or anything like that. We got the Sunlife 1 series with a range from about 300 watts to 1050 watts, depending on the room. So like our smallest room would be our bathroom. Upstairs, which would be 300 watts. And then our largest would be this one underneath us now, the 1050. And then we have the sun oil regulator to match. So the regulators are all wall mounted near light switches, and minimal cabling and replastering was needed by the electricians on the day. So we have 9 panels total and 8 regulators. We have 2 panels for the master ensuite, just because it's just the way we laid it out. We didn't feel like we needed a second regulator for the ensuite bathroom. Yeah. But every other room is 1 regulator, 1 panel. Yeah, and we decided to get 1 regulator for each panel because when we were thinking about it, if you have your regulator where your thermostat is, let's say you put it in your kitchen and you had 1 regulator for the whole downstairs, it would turn on and off the heaters depending on the temperature felt at that thermostat. So your kitchen could be hot and your sitting room could be cold. And then the radiators would either be on all the time or not on. And that didn't seem to be very efficient. And the whole point of localized heating is that you only heat the areas you actually want or need.
Mm-hmm.
So it just made sense to us to have a regulator per room, and then you turn them on and off as you need. And trying to kind of save money on it by having just maybe one upstairs, one downstairs just didn't really make any sense for the function of heating. Where
I guess from our point
for
of view,
efficiency
from our point of view, it was spending a bit of extra money
upfront,
to be making savings down the road.
and to make good use of data so we could set more firm schedules.
Yeah.
So like we aren't upstairs after we get out of bed until we go back to bed. So there's no real point having the whole house heated.
Mm-hmm.
We only heat upstairs, in the early morning and late at night.
Yeah.
And then downstairs is warm most of the day, if we're working or whatever. So it kind of feels like sitting, if you've ever sat in a window where there's sun coming through, that's what it feels like.
Yeah, it is very hard to put into words the difference. I guess the biggest difference is you don't have the stuffiness of hot air.
Yeah.
And you just have a
just warm
heat. It's not weaker heat than the heat from a convection heater, which was one thing I was a little bit worried
Like we've
about.
all had those electric plug-in heaters.
Yeah, but again, they're just convection heaters, so there's no different technology. Whereas here, it's a difference of the type of heating.
It just feels like the sun.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Like I thought that would be baloney when I heard people talking about it, but it does feel like the sun. It feels like if you close your eyes and you're sunbathing. That's what it feels like.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably the best heated our house has ever been.
Most consistent, I guess. Yeah.
Most consistent, yeah. It's most even temperature across the house. It's not like you step into one part of the same room and you're icy cold, depending on where you're sitting. So obviously, for now, electricity is more expensive than gas, which would have been our house. But for folks like us, we just don't want to have fossil fuel consumption. That's kind of why we wanted to go down the solar route. It wasn't really about the cost of electricity or that we would be making a saving versus gas. It was more just we wanted to have one utility bill and just where we can self-generate.
I guess where the savings would be coming from is from saving on service fees and then standing charges once we get rid of gas altogether. And then hopefully once the electricity prices start stabilizing.
Big if. But yeah, better than gas, which is very much out of our own control. So having a battery and a solar system means we do the majority of our heating on night rates in the early morning and after 7 at night when it's past peak. And then we have our batteries for boost during the day. We can use the solar to boost if we're feeding out to the grid. So if we have excess, but it's not quite enough for our car would need a minimum of like 1.4 kilowatts. But if we only have like 1 kilowatt in the winter, then we can just put it into a radiator or two, which we found very helpful because better than going to the grid and not getting much for it.
Yeah.
And then the other thing to mention is it's incredibly quiet. I would have very good hearing and the whistling of electronics would drive me mad, but I can't hear it. The only thing you would hear is when the schedule clicks on and off, the regulator would make a noise. It just goes click. That's it, but it doesn't keep clicking.
It's actually good because at least you know when
the schedule is on and off.
When they're coming on and off,
But it's so quiet, like it's just warm. It's refreshing. So the regulators record an average data consumption over time. So just to kind of explain it for folks, if it's a 600 watt panel and it runs at, let's say it's saying 50%, it's on max half the time at 600 watts. So what that means is that it'll record on the regulator, it's on at 300 watts or whatever. But what that means is it's on full for half of the scheduled time. So if it runs at a lower percentage when it's closer to the target, so let's say if the house is at 17.5, and the schedule wants the heat to be on at 18 degrees, then it might be only on 10% of that. So if it's a 600 watt panel, it'd be only on 60 watts, what it's recording. But what that means is, it's only on 10% full. So it's kind of a peak and trough heating system. So that's kind of how it works, in case you're curious. And then it's worth considering the total max output of the radiators if you're boosting. So for example, in that situation, like where we'd have like 1 kilowatt excess, and we want to make sure it doesn't go to the grid and be wasted, then I might turn on my office, which is 600, and my hallway for 300, which would be 900 total. So then max potential when they're peaking would be still less than the 1. Or I might boost the sitting room for 1050 for 30 minutes. The software is great, but consider your home Wi-Fi. Sorry, our cats are involved. As the regulators talk to the Wi-Fi, same as your solar inverter does. So if you've spotty Wi-Fi, probably get that sorted with range extenders if you want your heating to be remotely sorted on your phone while you're out. We have the Google Nest, so we have good Wi-Fi all over the house. We find it fantastic to be out, and we can just boost when we know we'll be home and we want to just throw on extra heat for the cats if we want. And like when you move to solar, the data can be frustrating as you want to work out an optimum schedule so you don't waste any money. But so if you're the kind of person you love the ability to knock off rads that you're not using or when you're out and about, just if you're a frugal personality like we would be. Yeah, so it depends. Like if that kind of stuff drives you mad, more data is great. So it's definitely helpful for the solar system. So we chose Infrared Ireland after shopping around, as they offered like the best installation and a very competitive product. It's very hard to find an electrician, especially one that might do the fitting and understand the new technology and go through where the optimal place to fit was and make sure the walls are sorted afterwards and that everything is traced and put through the walls without seeing cables dangling. And I have no technical experience in that product, so it didn't feel right for us to do it DIY, just buy them and fit them. So we wanted to make sure we could get an installer who we could trust. So we had Eamon, he came out for the house visit to start, and he talked through what we wanted and he made recommendations for where he thought we should oversize and undersize, as obviously the tech spec is for standard height. It's perfect squares, which our house is not. It's all odd shapes. No room is square. And then he recorded it all for review with the electricians before they arrived. Based on my calculations versus what we ended up installing, we ended up saving compared to what we thought we would have bought on our own. So Eamon really understands the product well and doesn't feel like he's trying to cod you with upselling, which I know a lot of people are worried about when it comes to new tech. So it's all done in one day by a team of electricians he uses based out of Mullingar, and he brought everything on the day and was kind of checking in with us periodically. And by the end of the day, everything was fitted and tested. So the electricians he used were very helpful, polite and tidy and everything. And what else to say about them? Yeah, all we had to do once they left was basically collect the regulators to the Wi-Fi. Like there's no cleaning or anything.
No, it's very tidy.
And then obviously Eamon kept in touch with us for a few days that evening and then for a few days after as well, giving us tips and tricks for the schedules. And he was very helpful with my many questions. And it was a comfort to us knowing it was a kind of a long established business, because you always want to know that you can have a warranty if you need it. For new technologies, that was very important to us, that like when we bought our car, we wanted to make sure that we went through a dealer, because that was important. If you ran into issues with new tech, you don't want to be trying to source problems by yourself. And we felt Infrared offered a very considerable warranty, so we felt very confident using them. So we're very happy we went with Infrared heating in particular due to the service from Eamon and folks on the day, and the product is great. We're glad we went all in on regulators, 1 per room. Wouldn't regret the decision or have made a cost saving. Would be great to see a few more features in the app, a bit more like the solar system, so you could like extract and do business and cost analysis and stuff like that directly in Excel, which would be cool. But the app is still updating, so maybe it'll get there. But for now, anyway, it's a very good app, and it's better than whatever we had before. It absolutely heats just as well as our old system. It's very pleasant. You can walk around a jumper. I have one today just because I've been out, but like you can see, he's always cold and he's in a t-shirt, so it's a very easygoing house. You kind of don't really need to do much. We definitely recommend it to most of our folks with houses like ours with middling BER ratings that aren't that old and don't need a retrofit. Like for getting a G BER, probably better just ripping the house apart and starting, but if you've got a B or a C, it's not really worth it. And then to the folks who have a really small footprint who want to maximize function, having ceiling mounted panels is class. So I'd recommend it to free up space. We found that when we kind of leave the windows open to vent for an hour or so, like the heat stays in the room as well, which is very strange, because like when we had gas, it would just go straight out the window. So
it seems like once it heats up, the temperature stays in the rooms a bit
drops
longer.
By maybe a degree.
But it stays definitely warmer for longer periods of time afterwards.
So, and we're happy. So we plan to remove our gas heating and radiators in the new year, once we can get Gas Network Ireland to let us. It's a bit of a long, protracted process.
Yeah.
But we're very happy. And will we do the same again, knowing what we do now?
Yeah,
Yes.
definitely.
And we go with Infrared Ireland as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So so that's it from us. We hope all of that extra context and information can help you with your decision on if it's right for you. But we would certainly have no regrets in that regard.
Yeah.
That's it. And so from us and our cats, that's it. Bye.
Bye.